I'm here today with Tamara, who is the director of Queen Maxima's office in the UN. Before we kind of dig into a little bit more about your role and the work you do with Queen Maxima, what was the first job you ever wanted to do as a child that you can think of?
Yeah. So I, as a child, I wanted to write, actually.
You wanted to be a
Um,
writer.
I wanted to write novels and poetry. But I quickly grew out of that. I realized I just really like to read, and I still read quite a lot. But
Fantastic.
pretty early on, I developed this passion for poverty and feeling very moved by poverty and injustice in the world.
Hmm.
And I'm a very practical person.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to see what we could do about poverty and justice, but do it in very practical, business oriented ways. So even as a young teenager, these two passions of mine came together.
Wow. And was there a catalyst? Was there a moment, something that you read or saw that kind of led you to down this pathway? Or
Um, Honestly, it was the fantastic public education that I received in my hometown of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
oh, fantastic.
And just learning about the world and dreaming about how it could be better.
That's great. No, absolutely fantastic. And I've had, I tend to ask this question of many, many people, and the only other person that said that they wanted to be a writer was the former governor of the MAS, Ravi Menon. And
Ah,
so,
that
you know,
doesn't surprise me, actually.
yes, he's a very learned individual like yourself. And so when I asked him why, he said he was inspired by a number of books,
Mm.
George Orwell's work, but a number of literary classics that gave him the calling to be a writer. And somewhere along the line in his educational kind of journey, he found out he was great at economics and maths and ended up becoming a civil servant. But he kept up the writing
Ah,
for his speeches. So whenever you hear a
oh,
speech
he gives
from,
great speeches.
he is the one that actually he has support, but then he's the one that does the final writing
Mm.
of the speech himself. So you're in good company. Maybe you could share a little bit more about the great work that you guys are doing, and then we can kind of talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. So, Her Majesty Queen Maxima started
Hmm.
working with the United Nations really more than 20 years ago. Really, as a former investment banker, now finding herself in the position that she was, she really wanted to be able to add her expertise to the world and be able to advocate for change, for people to have access to valuable financial services. About 16, 17 years ago, she was nominated by the Secretary General to be the special advocate for inclusive finance for development. And so has been actively working around the world to advocate for helping people get access to finance. But since the very beginning, I've heard her say so many times how important it was. The reason she cared about people getting access to financial services
Hmm.
was so that their lives could become better.
Hmm.
And so in the last, 2 decades, we have come a long way in getting people access to finance.
Yeah.
And in 2024, the Secretary General upgraded the mandate of Her Majesty to Special Advocate for Financial Health.
Yes, I heard about that. Yes, so it's kind of that access to health. But just on your topic of the access piece, because we've seen the number of financial inclusion, those excluded or those without a financial product as such, go from sort of like 3 billion, I think, in and around 2010 to roughly around 1.6, 1.4. It's difficult to kind of count, but it's in and around, and that's great strides.
It's a great testament and it's a great foundation to build on. We had to do that first
Yeah.
in order to really be able to take advantage of this. I spent the last 12 years in Kenya.
Hmm.
And in Kenya, Kenya has been one of the leaders in digital finance and really amping up from a low base to a high
Sure.
base of financial inclusion. And that's been an incredible story.
Hmm.
But as we were looking around, we were noticing that access to finance was not sufficient to
Hmm.
help people live better lives. And so we started looking at what else can we measure? And this was
Hmm.
exactly around the topic of financial health.
Hmm.
When we were looking around, we're saying, okay, you've got access to a bank account or a
Hmm.
mobile money account, but are you able to feed your family every month? Are you
Yeah.
able to deal with an unexpected health shock? Are you able to think about the future, really save up for that secondary education for your children or older age and security and
Mm.
in your financial life? And that was going down at the same time that access to finance was going up. So
Yeah.
the Central Bank of Kenya, among many other central banks around the world, started thinking about how do we measure the outcomes of financial access so that this incredible foundation of access
Mm.
can lead to real change in people's lives.
Yeah, agreed. Because it's having access is one thing, but it's a moot point if you're not able to then build on that access for maybe insurance products, pension products, and savings, and all of these elements. Okay. And are you seeing a movement in financial health across the region? You know, you talked a little bit about Kenya, but
Mhm.
are you seeing, and is your work kind of lend itself across large parts of Africa?
That's really interesting. We're here in Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
and Her Majesty met with the bank, central bank, and Minister of Finance actually at the spring meetings of the World Bank and IMF a few weeks ago,
Mm.
and she was explaining to them this concept of financial health, and they got it immediately. I mean, they'd heard about it, but it's all about what we're trying to achieve,
Mm.
right? Nobody wakes up thinking, I really want to open a bank account today. But people do wake up thinking about their money and how to manage their financial life to match their personal life
Mm.
and the personal goals that they have. And so it was really wonderful to see the leadership in Ghana here talking about in the press even how important
Mm.
financial health is as an outcome of both financial access but also broader economic development. What we're seeing is that there's evidence between how financially healthy families are
Mm-hmm.
and enterprises are and how that links to the economic and macroeconomic stability of a country,
Yeah.
right? And it just makes sense, right? It's intuitive as soon as you get it.
Yeah.
And it's being measured across the world. Financial health is not just something in Kenya or in Africa or Latin America
It's
or
across.
Asia. It's in every country in the world.
Yeah.
My home country of America, I should say my original home country,
Mm.
about half of the population can't come up with $400 in the case of an emergency. That
Yeah.
is a problem, right? And so, what are the financial tools that can help people save up for an emergency, have insurance for an emergency, have access to those tools to manage something like that?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because, certainly, and I don't like global south and global north as terms, but it kind of characterizes kind of a region. There's a lot in the north that have financial products, but the debt levels are so high that it's a moot point. You know,
Mm.
how you may have all these things, but if you can't do anything with it, then that's a main challenge. But what do you think the schools and governments, what is the role here? Because I you know, many years ago when I went to school, there was no topic or subject around how to use your money, how to use financial products, accounts, and all of these things. And to my knowledge, I don't think any school currently has that as part of their curriculum. Maybe some of the Steiner schools might do, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of experience of putting financial literacy in the schools around the world, in Europe, in Asia, in
Hmm.
Africa, and it can be a helpful tool, but it's not going to be the answer.
No.
It's part of the solution, and what the evidence shows is that putting education, especially with children and youth, what's really important is to make it kind of just in time.
Hmm.
So don't talk to an 8-year-old about mortgages, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to remember when they're 30 and they
No.
decide they want to think about that. But if you can talk about their spending money and how
Mm-hmm.
they're using their little bits of spending money, then they can start to understand that. What works best is when there's a moment in your
Mm.
life that you need to make a financial decision. If somebody can find that moment, say you're getting out of high school, maybe you're
Mm.
getting out of out of university, or you're getting married or
Mm.
getting divorced. There's these moments where
Yeah.
financial decisions are much heavier. And that's the moment when people are looking for that kind of financial
They're going to
input.
be more receptive as well, I suppose, to take it on board. Okay, okay, and then I've not asked any of the questions I had down on
I
here,
know.
but there was one around the confusion between access and health, and do you think that exists today, or
I think it's a false dichotomy.
Yeah.
I've been working in this field for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And when I first got into this field of helping low income people around the world get access to finance, what we were talking about was financial health. We didn't use the term financial health, but when
Ah.
we described why we were trying to help
Yeah.
people get access to a savings account, a credit
Mm.
account, and insurance, it was about managing day to day, dealing with risk, and investing in their
Yeah.
future productive assets. That's what we've
That's
always been
health.
talking about. That's
Yeah.
financial health.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is what we've been talking about for a long time, but we were kind of, you couldn't start there. You had to get the foundation out. And so for me, financial health is the outcome that financial access always intended
Yeah.
to. And so I think it's important that we don't confuse our words, that
No.
we don't make this into a debate of any kind.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really just saying what we all care about is the outcome.
Yeah.
And when I say the outcome, of course, I'm thinking about people's lives, but I'm also thinking about the providers. Financial
Mm.
service providers are better served when their customers are financially healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
For sure.
more likely to repay their loans. They're more likely to stick with the institution. They're
Yeah.
more likely to tell their communities about the institution. It's free marketing,
Yeah.
right? And so we think that financial health is good for business.
Yep.
It's good for governments who want to have a more financially stable population. And most importantly, it's good for households, the families, the children who live in those families.
Got you. Yeah, because we see a lot of the smaller banks, the cooperative banks and the community banks, they do great work in their respective regions. And now we're seeing, the new way of digital kind of banks coming through, like the Monzos, the Starlings,
Totally.
Chime. They're actually community based, and the way they communicate actually makes it easy. So, my children have a Revolut account just because it's so simple and easy.
Absolutely.
And when we go on holiday, we'll give a set amount of money. So they're beginning to get on that financial ladder in a safe way, basically. And I think, some of the current apps look far less intimidating than some of the traditional bank apps. And I don't know if you can see a big difference between the two. But I wanted to kind of touch upon the human side here on, can you share a moment when financial inclusion has kind of maybe failed to translate into kind of financial health? And what did that teach us, or what did that teach you personally?
So I think when I think back to the way that financial access has been measured, it's saying it's a binary measure.
Yep.
Do you, Pat, have an account? Yes or no? If you say yes, then you are financially included. And if I kind of walk away and say, great, he's financially included, I'm done. My job is done.
You wash your hands,
right?
Move on.
Binary measures don't make sense in people's lives,
Okay.
right? And so you have an account, great. How are you using that account? Have you been able to put some money aside? And you were just talking about these apps and some of these new banks and different ways of engaging with people. And what's great about technology now is technology can actually, as you say, mimic some of that community-based feel. It can use behavioral insights to design apps that help people do what they want to do anyway, and helps nudge them in the way that helps defaults be the thing that they would do if they kind of stepped back a minute. And so I think that where we've gone wrong is if we just think, okay, I've delivered it to you. It's not like, do you have a
almost
box?
like a tick in the box.
Here's a
Yeah,
box. You have the box.
Yeah.
It's how is that account helping you? How is that account being a gateway to other products and services, right? One of the powerful things about mobile money, especially in Kenya, where I've spent the most time, is that it helped people send money from urban areas to rural areas. That was the killer use case in the beginning. It was incredibly value. It saved people so much money. It helped families so much. Once you could do that, then the opportunities were endless.
Yeah.
Oh, now I can do a pay-as-you-go solution to buy an asset. Oh, now I can buy insurance with this. I can I could even buy investments with this. I can, and I can see my financial position on my phone all in one place. I can get a statement and get a better feel for this. I can see who's sending me money and who's not, and who owes me money. And so I think, where we go wrong is if we think about There's an old movie in America that had this phrase, if if we build it, they will come.
Oh, the Field of Dreams. Yeah.
And sometimes I think that the financial access message can kind of be like, okay, if we just give people access, then all the rest will follow. And I wish it were that simple, but it's not. I think
Hmm.
we have to be intentional as a community to say, okay, we've got access. Brilliant. Where do we go next? How
Hmm.
do we pave the way with regulation, with consumer protection, with, products and services that are enabled by innovators who have the ability and regulatory certainty to be able to offer these,
Hmm.
so that then people can kind of go through that gate and find the next bits that will help them.
Yeah. No, no, makes sense. And one of the conversations I had a few years back with someone was that the current construct of a bank account has been in place for so many years, and essentially there's 6 or 7 things you want to do with money. You want to spend it, share it, borrow, lend, manage. There's 6 or 7 use cases, and we've put these complex rules,
Mm.
regulations, systems, and even legacy people around this construct. And it's great to see mobile money have its evolution over the last 10, 15 years, and obviously M-Pesa has been one of the bigger pieces. And that was an innovation that someone stumbled upon, because I think it was medical records they were using as transmission from one place to another, and we can do a check. It's not true.
No.
So I spoke to the guy, though. I spoke to the guy from it was a scholar from the
There are
UK.
many people who claim they
Yeah.
invented M-Pesa and
No, no.
have
So
and many
the
stories.
technology, the underlying technology.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
fine.
not the M-Pesa part itself,
No, no,
but
no. Okay.
the transmission of information from one point to another, and then it was commercialized into
Fair.
this. But the bit I want to go to now is, what's the one thing you would want to change where we currently are today? What would that be?
I only get one.
3. Your top
No,
3.
no, I'll,
Yeah.
I'll, I'll, I could do that. I think I would love for us as a community of the financial sector, to really take a step back and say, what are we here for? What is our social contract with society?
Hmm.
Um, we, as a financial sector, are meant to intermediate money, move money through time and space, basically.
Hmm.
And how can we do that in ways that are good for our business
Hmm.
and that are good for the communities we live in, that are good for the countries
Hmm.
that we are? And so I think measurement is one part of that can, in the same way that access can lead us to financial health, if
Hmm.
it's supported in ways that take us down that direction. I think measurement can help us figure out, where are we and where do we want to go. And so that might be, if I could pick one today, I think that would be one.
Okay. And what's the biggest risk then do you see at the moment, if we don't shift this conversation, don't move this dialogue forward? Because right now, I would wonder what the stats are that says how many people are access is fine within reason, but the health part, that seems to be
Yeah.
something that's across the world.
Look, we're in a changing world,
Mm.
changing rapidly every month, every day, every week, it
Hmm.
seems. And if we don't broaden this conversation beyond a binary view of access
Mm.
to what is the role of finance in people's lives and in economic development and growth and in this world, then we will be tying our hands. We'll be limiting what's possible. Um, right now, there are less resources than there used to be. There are constrained
Potentially
objectives.
high rising unemployment with AI coming in, and
There are a lot
yeah.
of things that are going to change, right?
Mm.
That are changing everywhere. And so what we need, I believe, are the financial tools to help people manage this increasing uncertainty, and plan for an uncertain future in the ways that are responsible and can deliver value for them and their families.
Okay, we're gonna leave on one high note here.
Good.
What are you excited about at the moment? What inspires you right now from things that you're doing, you're seeing, you're reading? Yeah,
Yeah.
what inspires?
Um, so I have spent a long time in my kind of second home country in Kenya, going deep and figuring out what matters in
Hmm.
people's lives and how we can bring about change. So right now I'm excited to be part of this global conversation
Hmm.
and being able to think about and hopefully inspire others under the leadership of Her Majesty to really take a step back and consider what they can do to
Hmm.
help in their own life to be more financially healthy, perhaps, but also just to help communities and families be more financially healthy. It 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 risks becoming a word that doesn't have
Hmm.
meaning. But if you just step back and say, like, what could we do to help everybody get through their day and deal with the problems that they face and really be able to dream about the future instead of worry about the future?
Hmm.
Like, how is that not something to wake up every
That
morning
is
thinking about?
inspiring. Yeah. I was going to say you have one of the coolest jobs in the world for sure.
I
It's like
agree.
a crusader for financial health. But on that note, thank you so much for spending time with us today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the partnership with GFTN. I think what you're doing is just brilliant around the world and inspiring everyone to take advantage of finance and technology,
Yeah.
not for the sake of finance and technology, but for the bettering of the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Bye.